So you're new into photography and you think, I need that new piece of gear to make my photos or my videos even better. We've all been there. I've experienced it. But I'm here to tell you, there's only a few things that you really truly need when you get started in photography. And today, I'm gonna walk you through those few things. Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. My name is Zach. I'm a photographer and videographer, but more important than that, I'm a husband and a father. And today we're talking the gear beginners actually need when they're getting started. So we're gonna start off with the obvious one, which is a camera. You wanna get into photography, you need a camera, right? So there's a couple of different options out there. For me personally, I've had a lot of different camera bodies over the years. I started off with my very first one as a Sony Alpha A100, I believe. And I've just kind of progressed throughout the years. I was in Canon for a long time. I picked up the Fujifilm X100F and then the Fujifilm X-T30. And this past summer, my wife and I switched over to the Sony game. So we've had a lot of camera bodies, and I'll tell you that there are some great benefits to a lot of these different cameras. But when it comes to a camera that you're wanting to use, maybe to document your family life, or just to indulge your hobby, there's a few things I'd recommend. First off, pick a camera that you like. Pick something that is enjoyable for you to use. I love my Sony a7 IV. This is a great camera, it takes some great photos, but in all reality, I only ever use this for professional work. This never gets used for personal work, and there's a couple reasons. One, it looks like a professional camera. I don't really want to be out in public with this thing. Not because I think anyone's gonna try and steal it from me, but more so, I just don't want the attention. So this is not a camera I typically carry. Along with that, it's honestly a big camera. Like, this is a full-size camera. You've got a big grip. You're gonna have a big lens on here. This isn't small, this isn't light, this is not, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not covert. So this is not typically a camera that I would carry around and just use everyday life. Now, the Fujifilm X100F or the X-T30, these are cameras that I would carry around, and I have and do carry around on a regular basis. So for me, my everyday carry camera, my fun camera, I wanted something that would be small, lightweight, easy to use, and would look good. I mean, I love the style of these cameras. They look like old film cameras. I think they just look beautiful to me. I love the all black. I mean, there's just a elegance, I think, to the look of them. And to me, that's appealing. I want the aesthetic look of a cool camera while having something that's fun to use and takes good quality photos. Along with that, something I really found that I enjoyed on these Fujifilm cameras is the tactile buttons. For me, as a professional photographer, the tactile buttons kind of made me slow down and just enjoy photography a little bit more when I was doing it not for work. So that was a big deal to me. I think for you, think about what are the things that are important in a camera that you like? What are things that you want to have? What are even the aesthetic appeals to a certain camera? Then it comes to specs. And yes, I am putting what you like above specs because especially if this is something that's for a hobby, I think the specs don't have to be crazy out of this world. You know, this camera has a much bigger sensor and more megapixels than this camera. That's just the fact of the matter. But that doesn't mean I can't take some amazing photos with this camera. So when you're thinking about a camera and you're thinking about the specs, yes, things like the megapixels, yes, things like the sensor size, those matter. The more megapixels, the clearer your photo is going to be. The larger the sensor size, the better your image is going to be. And then along with that, there are some features that come in different cameras, right? This camera can shoot video. Actually, all three of these cameras can shoot video, but we do use this camera for video when it comes to weddings. And so there are some good features in that. You know, both of these cameras, you can put the Fujifilm color profiles on them and send photos directly from your camera to your phone to be able to post. There are some good features that you want to look into the specs. But I think for me, I would say if you're looking for a camera to start off with, if you're looking for something for a hobby, for fun, think first about what are the things you like about a camera, and then think about the specs. Don't put specs first because you may end up getting a really amazing camera that you just don't enjoy using because something about it just doesn't feel right. I would encourage you to pick something up that feels right in your hands, and even if the quality isn't as great as something, you know, like this, that's okay, because if it means you're going to use it more, that's better. Now, the next thing is lenses. So the lens can be just as important, if not more important than the camera itself. Yes, your camera decides your sensor size and the megapixels, but if you have a quality lens on a crappy camera, you're gonna get better photos than if you have an amazing camera with a crappy lens. The lens is kind of what really makes the difference here. So for some cameras, like the Fujifilm X100 series, the lens is a fixed lens. You can't change this, you can't take it off, and that's just kind of what you're working with. On my Fujifilm X-T30, I do have the option to take the lens off and to swap it out for another lens. There is some benefits to having a camera where you can switch out the lenses, but let's talk about starting off focal lengths. So the focal length that you choose is really important. Different focal lengths are good for different projects. So if you're wanting to shoot landscape stuff, maybe a wider focal length would be your choice. The focal length I have for my X-T30 with the crop sensor of this camera, it's about a 28 megapixel focal length, which is great for a wide variety of things that I use, right? Maybe there's some landscape photos, maybe there's just some family photos. For me personally, this is the main lens I use. It's actually the only lens I have for my Fuji. And it works for almost everything. Yes, there are times I'd like to have, maybe a zoom lens where I can get some more close up shots and things like that. But to me, it's okay that I don't. Now, when it comes to professional work, I definitely have more lenses. We've got, right on here right now is a 50mm lens, which is great for product photography, great for portraits. We've got 35mm lens, which I think I actually like the 35 more than the 50. My wife would disagree with me. We've got a 24-70, which is an amazing lens. It's probably the one I have on my camera most of the time when I'm filming. For this YouTube video, I'm filming on a 16 to 28mm lens. And then of course we have the big boy, the 70-200. Now, a whole bunch of different lenses for a whole bunch of different reasons, right? If you're maybe like a bird photographer, you probably want something like this, or maybe even a 400mm lens. You want something that you can get your subject close and personal, right? If you're shooting portraits, a 50mm or an 85mm is amazing. If you're just wanting to document family life, maybe something that's a little bit wider is good. But then you also have to think about, do I want a prime lens or do I want a telephoto lens? Now the difference here is a prime lens is something like this, where it's one focal length. It's just 50mm versus something like this that is a telephoto. I can go from 70 all the way up to 200. With the 70-200, you get a good range. So that's the benefit. You're able to get a range of photos, which is just amazing. Like I said, for video, I keep the 24-70 on my camera most of the time because it allows me to get such a wide range of clips. I can get some wide clips, I can zoom in and get some tighter clips, and that's just really helpful on shoot days, wedding days, things like that. The prime lenses though, they're a little bit sharper and usually you have a lower aperture. So if you're wanting to get more shallow depth of field, a prime lens is probably going to be handy for you. So there is some differences. You got to kind of figure out what's important to me. Do I want, a range or do I want a prime? I think I would recommend people starting off, get a range lens, get a telephoto lens, maybe something like a 24-70. That way you have a little bit more play with it. You're able to get a whole variety of types of photos. That would be my suggestion if you're starting off. But like I said, I love just this wide lens on my everyday carry camera. Okay, so next is tripods. And there's a lot of different tripods. I'm not recommending you get this. This is ridiculous, but I wanted to show it to show that it's ridiculous. So when it comes to tripods, this is one of those things where you might feel the need to get something cheaper. And I want to tell you, don't do that. This is one of those areas where you want to make sure you spend a good amount of money because it's something that's important and you don't really want to replace it. My mindset here is buy once, cry once. So spend the money up front so that you don't have to replace it over time. I've seen so many people, my wife included, picking up, those Amazon basic tripods, and sure, they work, but they don't work well. They're cheap, they're flimsy, they're not easy to use, and they can just honestly ruin your photos and ruin your camera. The amount of times I've heard of people saying, oh yeah, my tripod fell apart, or my tripod fell over and my camera broke, it's just not something that you want. So I want to recommend that you actually spend some money on a tripod that is going to last a while, is going to allow you to take good photos and not worry about whether or not it's going to hold up your gear. So I've got a couple of different options here, things that I can show you. If you're looking for something that is just simple, maybe you want a vlogging sort of style, something like this is great. This is the PGY Tech, I think Mantis. And it's a great little tripod. So great if you want to put the camera on it, you want to vlog a little bit. It folds out, it's got some cool features. This is a great little tripod for vlogging, for just simple use. Maybe even if you're just wanting to do some talking head videos, this would work well as long as you have something like a table to stand it on. Now, this is a small tripod. This probably isn't right for everyone, and it's very limited in its abilities. In the same way, this guy, the Manfrotto, what is this? Manfrotto Pro? I don't know. This thing is giant, and this is not right for everyone as well. You know, this is more so for people who are maybe into videography and need a good tripod for interviews, for corporate work, things like that. This is a heavy tripod. This is not something I would want to be carrying around with me on an everyday basis, but it is a very sturdy tripod. It has its perks to use for video, but I wouldn't recommend something like this for just starting out in photography. It's way too big. It's way too unnecessary in all reality, and just too complicated to use when, you know, you're just wanting something easy, simple, and will hold your gear. So I put this in here to show the difference, but I don't recommend getting something like that. Instead, I'd recommend a small travel tripod like the Peak Design tripod. Ulanzi has a great tripod, as well as Freewell. Both tripods I've either tried out or am wanting to try out and have seen good reviews on. But something that is a small travel tripod like this that can go from a small size all the way up to a large size. I think this is, I don't know, what, 16 inches tall right now, maybe ish around there. And I think it extends all the way up to like 5 feet. That is a good range, as well as it's small when you compact it, right? So like this is the size of a water bottle. It can fit in the water bottle pocket of your bags. It's got some great features in it. It's got some sturdy clamps. Like, these are all things that are important, as well as the fact that it's pretty lightweight. And a lot of tripods now, this is the aluminum version. A lot of tripods are coming in carbon fiber. And so there are so many good benefits to a good tripod like this that it's worth spending your money on, even if it feels like it might be more than you want to spend on a tripod. I bought this thing, I don't know, 5-6 years ago now, and I've never felt the need to replace it because it has stood the test of time. It still works great. It's easy to use, and it's easy to bring with me on trips and for events and things like that if I don't want to bring the behemoth. Okay, next is something smaller. SD cards and hard drives. These are essential. Obviously, you need an SD card to take photos on your camera, but what SD card should you get? I know for me, I just got a basic SD card when I first started, and I always wondered, why does it take so long for my camera to take photos, right? That's because of the write speeds that are on your SD cards. So for me, I use a 64 gigabyte, 170 megabyte per second SD card when I'm on like my Fujifilm, because that works perfectly fine. 170 megabytes is quick enough for just that camera. When I'm using my more professional camera, I'll use something that has at least 200 megabytes per second, if not 300 megabytes per second. The quicker the write speed, the quicker you're going to be able to take photos, the quicker your camera has in the refresh time, things like that. It just makes the process a lot easier, as well as transferring that footage from the SD card to your hard drive. Along with that, you want to look at the size of your SD card. So here is a 64 gigabyte SD card. Here is a 128 gigabyte SD card. This is something I will use for my Fujifilm. This is something I would use for my professional camera. So the more size you have, the more storage capacity you have. It's as simple as that. Then it comes to hard drives. When I first started out, I was editing my photos on my computer, just dropping them on the desktop. I would delete all the raw photos because I didn't have room for, all those raw photos. And nowadays, I wish I still had some of those raw photos that I could go back and re-edit and things like that. That's where an external hard drive really comes into play. Having something like one of these SSDs that is quick to edit on, quick to transfer to, and has a high capacity for storage means that for years, you are going to have a place to put and view your photos or videos if that's something that you're doing as well. So this is a Samsung T7 2TB SSD. This is what I use for all of my professional work. It is fantastic. I absolutely love it. Have no complaints, have never had an issue with it crashing or getting corrupted or anything like that. This is a solid SSD, and I would recommend it to anyone. This is the SanDisk 4TB Extreme Portable SSD, and this is also a great SSD. I picked this up for my family stuff because I wanted a 4TB one, and honestly, this one was just cheaper than the Samsung version. I will say I have had a little bit more connectivity issues with this one than I ever have with the Samsung. But I found the right cable that works with it, and it's not been a problem since. So I definitely recommend checking out multiple different SSDs, but I highly recommend the Samsung T7 versions. They are fantastic, and you're just able to store all of your footage in one place, be able to go back to it, be able to save it for years. Having an SSD is essential. Next comes bags. I would say that it is important for everyone to have a bag when they're starting out in photography, because you want to have somewhere to put your camera to make sure it's safe and easily to bring with you. Now, whether you need a big everyday carry camera bag like one of these, or you just need a sling, that's up to you. I have done some comparison videos between these two, which is the Peter McKinnon Luma bag from Nomadic and the Brevity Jumper. I've also done a video on this sling bag, which is the Bellroy Venture 6 liter, I believe. Whatever you decide, it's important to have a bag because you want to have something that keeps your gear safe, that allows you to bring with you easily. Sometimes it's a hassle to just carry around, your lens in your pocket or extra SD cards or whatever. Having a bag just makes it a lot easier, keeps your gear safe, keeps you feeling secure as well. And so I think I personally use this bag the most when I'm just taking photos because I don't want to have a big camera bag like this around with me. I used to, when I first started off, I thought I needed to have a big everyday carry video bag that could carry my camera, my tripod, my hard drives, my microphone, my drone, all this different stuff. The reality was I never used half of that stuff. Actually, I never used like 80% of that stuff. And so something like this nowadays is all I use. I can fit my DJI Pocket 3, my Fujifilm, a battery pack, extra things like that in here, and it's perfect. It's small, it's lightweight, it doesn't, draw attention. When I'm carrying a backpack like this, it means I'm doing work. It means I've got my computer with me. It means I've got, chargers with me and all that sort of stuff. These aren't essential. I would say having a bag is essential, but what kind of bag, whether it's a big camera bag or a small sling bag, that is what is important for you to pick. But I would recommend having something because you want to make sure that your gear is safe, that it is secure, and that it's easy to bring with you on a regular basis. So there you have it, the essentials to what you need as a new photographer, videographer. If you have any questions about any of these, please let me know. Like I said, I've done a couple of different videos on a few different of these that you can go check out and get some more information on. But I hope this has helped you. I hope this has at least given you the realization that you don't have to get everything. You don't need a ton of stuff. You can start with the basics and grow from there. I wish I knew that when I was starting off. I definitely had buyer fatigue and remorse after spending a ton of money on stuff I didn't need. So I hope this has helped you. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button, subscribe if you're not already, and I'll see you in the next one.